Bitcoin mining? Processing power? Hash rate? What's all this about graphics cards and GPUs and moving to new places around the world? Are Bitcoins made from volcanoes, wind, and water? Should you care? Hey, real quick, if you like these videos, don't forget to do the little things that help us out a lot. Like, comment, follow, and share the video. Thanks. Firstly, if you don't know what proof of work is, I'll give a quick explanation. And if you already know and want to dig into the other topics, just use the timestamps to skip ahead. I don't mind. Bitcoin uses proof of work as a mechanism of maintaining decentralization and security. This method of securing the blockchain never fails to garner lots of criticism whenever Bitcoin is enjoying periods of high popularity. Contrary to how it may sound to those not familiar with the topic, the large amounts of power required for proof of work aren't a result of secure cryptography being inherently processing power intensive. Rather, Bitcoin's proof of stake implements a system where arbitrary processing power intensive puzzles are created in addition to what it takes to process the functional code in order to make it costly for miners to participate. This creates a situation in which it is costly to attack the system. In a decentralized environment like blockchains, the entire system needs to be made trustless, which means that it must function in a way that assumes participants will cheat the system if it is valuable for them to do so. Proof of work helps to ensure that the cost of trying to cheat the system is higher than the potential reward. So to explain using an analogy, imagine if everyone had Naruto's power to create tons of images of themselves, and a magic bank vault's security system relied on making the correct hand gestures. But those who made the incorrect hand gestures were annihilated. One could use their countless images to make all kinds of hand gestures until they happened upon the right one, and keep doing this for all the magic bank vaults without incurring any significant penalty, as the fake images are basically free and can be remade instantly after being annihilated. So how would you redesign that magic vault? One easy solution is to require something to be pressed or moved, as this would be outside the ability of mere shadows. After all, moving something requires energy, so the Naruto-like person would either need many friends or need to quickly exhaust all of his power. To wrap up this explanation without getting too bogged down in detail, essentially the only way to break the security protocol would be to have more than 50% of the miners in agreement on the way they want to cheat the system. So, in many ways, when Bitcoin's popularity rises, so does its security. So when you hear about Bitcoin mining taking up as much energy as Sweden, remember that it also means that at a bare minimum, a unified malicious entity would need to have access to more than half the power of Sweden to possibly break Bitcoin security. Of course, the number of Bitcoin mines and miners isn't always constant. You may have heard recently that due to regulations on mining in China, the amount of mining activity has dropped. Is this just speculation, or are people watching all the miners and seeing many shut down their workshops? No and no. It's actually quite simple to keep an eye on the amount of Bitcoin mining happening at any given time by watching what is called the hash rate. So the hash rate is the amount of processing power being contributed to the network through mining. Bitcoin's hash rate is measured in hashes per second. Since Bitcoin's network is huge, it calculates a huge amount of hashes every second. Because of this, the hash rate is usually measured by the million. Bitcoin's hash rate can fluctuate drastically day by day. It's common to see hash rate movements of 10% or more each day, but fluctuations don't have an exact correlation to the number of miners joining or leaving the network each day. In fact, Bitcoin's average hash rate calculation isn't precise. Due to the huge number of mining rigs running all over the world, one can only look to imprecise indicators to estimate the current hash rate. Therefore, anytime you search the current hash rate, you're likely to get different results from different sources. So to get a clearer idea of the actual hash rate, it's better to look at longer-term trends, such as the weekly average hash rate rather than the daily average. For individual miners, hash rate calculations can help predict their rig's potential profitability. Miners can use hash rate calculators to calculate their personal hash rate. By inputting the specs of their mining equipment, they can get an approximation of their potential hash rate in the current market. They can then do additional calculations on power consumption, mining fees, and any other relevant information to arrive at an earnings estimate. So, why is Bitcoin hash rate such a common topic of discussion? A higher hash rate can be construed to mean that miners are investing money into better mining equipment, which in turn indicates that they have confidence in the Bitcoin network. That being said, the hash rate can drop for other reasons than a decrease of confidence in the network. For example, it's quite undisputed that a large factor in the recent hash rate drop is the fact that a huge percentage of the miners providing hash power are faced with the necessity of shutting down their mining farms and/or moving outside of China. Which makes this an interesting time in the history of Bitcoin. One result of this diaspora is that tons of miners are selling off their equipment and their Bitcoin to either get out of the mining game or to fund their move to a new location. Another result is that different places around the world are seeing this as an opportunity and welcoming the adrift Bitcoin miners to come to their figurative shores. Although the Bitcoin price has been a bit bearish recently, we can see a pronounced dip that most attribute to miners selling off their Bitcoin as they've had to close down or move. The fact that it recovered quickly is a good sign for Bitcoin sentiment. We've also seen much cheaper prices on processing equipment associated with Bitcoin mining, which is a nice relief for people who want to get into mining or are just looking to get a new graphics card for gaming, as one complaint against Bitcoin's popularity has been that the price of hardware has been driven up. The most interesting result, however, is this exciting time in which we can only make educated guesses about where the Bitcoin mines will move to. The answer is that most likely they will become less densely congregated in specific countries or even specific provinces. Some of the countries that seem to have potential for building up mining communities are Kazakhstan, El Salvador, Norway, Sweden, Canada, and the United States. Within the US, there are some states that are clearly more likely to host Bitcoin miners than others. So the big factor that makes Kazakhstan a likely choice in the short term is that it shares a border with China and is therefore much closer to the mines that need to relocate their operations. Of course, considering the power situation, it's very unlikely all the miners will stop there long term. Abundant cheap power and the ability to quickly get permission and then build mining farms are all essentials for these big mining entities. El Salvador is of course much further away and also doesn't currently have the infrastructure to support tons of huge mining operations. But as the first country to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, and the president's initiative to even harness the power of their local volcanoes for Bitcoin mining, it is clearly a uniquely welcoming destination for Bitcoin miners. Northern European countries like Norway and Sweden are optimal locations for abundant renewable energy, which is ideal for Bitcoin mining as they can build their mines closer to the source of their energy and therefore have less wasted energy. Additionally, the northern environment provides cool temperatures, which means less energy spent on keeping all the hardware from overheating. Canada has potential as a Bitcoin mining destination for much the same reasons. Certain locations in the United States also have a high potential as mining hubs due to a mix of potential green energy solutions, high-capacity power grids, and welcoming public officials. Again, like most topics, this issue varies a lot from state to state. New York, for example, has begun putting restrictions on Bitcoin mining, citing environmental concerns, while other states, such as Wyoming, Florida, and Texas, all expressed a welcoming attitude toward Bitcoin mining. Here we can see the governor of Texas expressing his support on Twitter. Miami's mayor recently said, "We're talking to a lot of companies and just telling them, hey, we want you to be here," in reference to Bitcoin miners. And Wyoming has been making moves for a while to attract cryptocurrency investment as a means of keeping up with the times and promoting innovation. Alright, I think that's more than enough for one video. So to recap, part of Bitcoin's current method of security is called proof of stake, and it intentionally uses power to secure the network from potential foul play. The amount of processing power being used to secure Bitcoin at any given time is called the hash rate, and a higher hash rate is generally regarded as a good thing. Recently, the hash rate has gone down in part from mines needing to move out of China, which has in turn created an interesting situation in which Bitcoin mining is likely to become even more decentralized as more miners move to various locations around the world. So let's keep an eye out and see what happens next. Thanks for watching this video. See you next time. If you don't have a Phemex account yet, just click on the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. Create a Phemex account and you'll get a 7-day free premium membership trial and other trading bonuses. To learn more about Phemex and cryptocurrencies, watch the videos on the box on the left. And if you're new to the crypto world, have a look at the videos on the right for some of Phemex's user tutorials.